Hi there and hello, my name is Connor. It's very hot right now and my glasses keep fogging up. Lately I've been listening to the newest Aldo van Eyck album, and it is really cool. This album is titled Das Ding, and this came out about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. This album is full of absolutely beautiful jazz movements, as well as very heavy hitting indie grunge and punk aggression. And that is such a cool sound, in my opinion. This album is about 1 hour and I think 11 minutes long, so it is hefty. Because of that, I've only listened to it about 3 or 4 times just because it's a real time commitment. The more I listen to it though, I just keep thinking to myself, like, wow, jazz is so back. Jazz is back on the menu, it's popular, and I also kind of feel like it's everywhere. Now, of course, jazz never actually left. However, I feel like it hasn't really been cool in a very long time. For example, how often do your friends recommend you modern jazz albums? I would think probably not very many. And I also feel like it's probably even less for albums that have come out within the last few years. However, I feel like that's not really the case in Japan. Jazz is everywhere, and I would also say that it is pretty much coexisting with every genre out there too. That also got me thinking that it seems like a lot of young people are into jazz, especially at the moment. I don't think I've ever said how old I am on my channel, so I'm 28. And I feel like a lot of people maybe within 6 years younger than me and maybe like 4 years older than me listen to jazz a lot. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of very popular jazz musicians here in America. I feel like if you are a popular jazz musician, you are probably known for composing movie soundtracks or show soundtracks, or maybe some kind of musical. But again, that's not really the case in Japan. Sure, there are a lot of artists who will do soundtracks for shows and for movies, such as Fox Capture Plan, such as Mouse on the Keys, such as Light. I feel like a lot of the youth in Japan are just really embracing the sound of jazz within the last, I'd say, 10-ish years. Take, for example, some of the bands that I've talked about on my channel recently, such as Beck Cover, Suchmos, Not Wonk, Mesa Monas, and also No Buses. Especially with those examples, there is a lot of collaboration between jazz genres and also rock genres too. But even still, this popularization of jazz into mainstream music is not just limited to rock either. Many Japanese hip-hop and also electronic artists are also happily embracing this sound as well in their work, such as Mamiko Suzuki, such as Hakushi Hasegawa, and also Hugin, and also Dos Monos. While on one hand, I would say that jazz fusion is probably the predominant version of this jazz sound in the Japanese mainstream music industry, I feel like nowadays you are just seeing and also hearing a lot more electronic production in jazz arrangements in Japan. Like many of the non-rock Japanese hip-hop and also electronic jazz artists that I just mentioned, there are many everywhere constantly making hit after hit after hit that are maybe not incredibly popular in the mainstream Japanese music circuit. They are definitely popular online. City pop is still popular, and I still think it's kind of going through that revival phase even to this day. Though I do also feel like maybe that's on the way out, just because it's been everywhere the past like 15 years, and now it's so commercialized and so kind of cookie cutter in some ways. That said too, I do think the inclusion of the jazz sound in the very popular pop songs in Japan is very apparent, and I would also say that that is what really defines the last decade of Japanese pop music too. Now, of course, there are lots of exceptions to that too. It just seems to me like jazz is everywhere in Japanese music, especially saxophones. I feel like I hear that at least once on like every album I listen to nowadays. But again, not like I'm complaining, because usually that saxophone really hits and it is performed usually pretty well. I think the prevalence of this jazz sound in Japanese music is especially apparent because making music now is easier and more accessible than ever. It's just so easy for someone young to become inspired by some of their favorite artists, maybe that they were shown by their parents when they were growing up, and that just kind of stuck with them all throughout their life. Then as a result of that, we get some amazing rock jazz artists, you know, like 20 years down the line, and they're just coming out with some new stuff that's just revolutionary. It sounds awesome, it's all earworms, and I feel like that happens all the time. Like I keep talking about on my channel, Suchmos has been killing it over the past 10 years. And also, can you believe that the lead singer of that band is only 33? I feel like he has another like 40 years of amazing music that he could make. I mean, like, I hope he lives forever, but I mean, I don't know. That said too though, this is by no means some kind of new phenomenon either. Like for example, genres such as Shibuya Kei have always combined rock and jazz into a very specific niche sound. And like so many other genres, this has only become more and more popular since its induction as well. Take, for example, all of those late 90s and also 2000s bands such as Ryu Senkei, Kirinji, and also Lamp that have openly embraced this sound and have really and truly popularized it internationally as well. You also have even newer groups such as Never Young Beach and also Trooper Salute, who are incredibly new, who are continuing to actually develop this sound too. While I've been listening to Japanese music for as long as I can remember, I think one of the defining points for me is probably the 2017 Polka Dot Stingray album, which is titled Zenchi Zenno. I think this was such a burst of a new jazz rock sound for me that I just fell in love with this very specific genre and also the band as a whole. And also I feel like the Japanese mainstream as a whole too. This was a band that was constantly charting, and they were doing jazz, math rock, pop music. And that is something you would never hear ever chart in America. And I also feel like in a lot of other Western countries too. Yes, it's not quite a jazz album. I do feel like that there's something about the guitar melodies and the riffs and also the time signatures of the song that kind of make me think of it as one. Ever since that album came out, I have just been continually impressed with how popular pop, jazz adjacent music is in the Japanese mainstream music industry. I really wish more markets would take advantage of this sound too, because I do kind of feel like that's what my channel is really all about when you get down to it. It's just me like, hey, I wish we had music like this outside of Japan, because only Japan is making really cool music specifically like this. Now, personally, I do kind of feel like the US is maybe coming back around to this jazz fusion sound, but I do also feel like it's mainly propagated by American indie artists who are fairly hard to discover just because there's so many all the time. There's always a new band, and they're always landlocked to whatever city they're in, or whichever region or state, or I guess whatever genre or whatever online circle they're in, or Tumblr or Twitter space, and it's just hard to find people sometimes. So far, jazz rock fusion has really filled up a lot of the music that I've been listening to so far this year. And so with that said, here are a few of my recommendations. I think I've talked about all of these on my channel already, but in case you haven't seen those videos, or in case you haven't seen videos where I talk about those videos, here's the albums. First and foremost, Mei Simone's Animaru. Oh my god, it is beautiful bossa nova, and it's also punk, and I like to call this genre Masha Nova, because I stank face every time I hear some of these awesome jazz arrangements. It goes crazy. Please watch my video on it. Thanks. Mei has also written some incredibly intricate guitar passages and lyrics that just make me want to blush because they're so cutesy about love and just loving her friends and her family and her guitar, and it's just wonderful stuff. And then this next one should come as no surprise. I also want to recommend the newest Beck cover album, Yuki. This is one of the best straight jazz albums to have come out this year, and I think maybe for the last few years. Jiro Yanasi sings with all of his soul, and the band perfectly matches that energy too. It's remarkable. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I really recommend that new album from Aldo van Eyck, which is called Das Ding. This album features some really tight jazz arrangements with enough prog rock to, I feel like, maybe rival Tool or just Spoil Man or really any kind of progressive rock band. And that is very impressive for a like 50-50 jazz rock album. What's that? You want some more jazz rock recommendations? Okay, can I recommend that Not Wonk album from January of this year? It's called Bout Foreverness, and I have been listening to it constantly. I have it on CD. This album contains some earth-shattering jazz rock with a very introspective edge on the lyrics too. I find that the songs are equally bombastic as they are minuscule and sincere sounding, and it is just such an experience to listen to, and it comes together perfectly despite how kinda crazy it gets sometimes. One album I'll be talking about soon is the newest from the band Yuran-sen, and it is titled My Chemical Romance. Yes, that is very confusing. I don't know why they named it that. This album is really made up of every genre. Yes, there is some jazz. Yes, there is some rock. Yes, there is some pop. And yes, there is some electronic, synthwave, even verging on maybe a little dubstep, but not quite. So I mentioned this album because I feel like it really emphasizes jazz and pop alongside rock, and that isn't anything new, though I feel like the way that the band goes about it is really interesting and fresh, and it just always keeps you on your toes because it's constantly changing direction, but never in a way that's like way too far off the path, if you get what I mean. And then last but not least, I do also want to recommend that newest EP from Suchmos, which is titled Sunburst. Suchmos is really one of the best to ever do it, and I think if you like acid jazz and yacht rock, this is the EP for you, and you are going to fall in love with this band because they have not missed a step at all in the 6 years that they've been on hiatus. And yeah, those are my recommendations. Maybe if you are interested in any other recommendations, you can check out my playlist for jazz reviews that I've made, because I think I've got quite a lot of them now, so hey, maybe you'll get some cool recommendations there. On top of that too, maybe check out my Spotify because I have lots of playlists on there. Particularly, I also have my City Pop playlist on there too, which I talked about in a recent video. So I guess maybe check that out if you want to go listen to some music straight away. Yeah. I do really hope that Japanese artists continue to explore jazz and also manage to find new avenues in which they can work it into their music. Jazz is not a budding genre by any means whatsoever, but I would say that its historical roots and also its ability to adapt to new music aesthetics can really easily rival those of the genre giants such as rock and pop. And as it stands right now, I do really think that we're currently in a time where jazz proliferation is very, very frequent. And that's something that I see being true for years and years to come. Probably forever, honestly. That's everything I wanted to yap about. So thank you so much for listening. I would also be very interested to hear what your thoughts are too on what I said, or I guess what your thoughts are on the genre as well, or I guess maybe just some other recommendations that you have sort of in this field, genre, lane, whatever. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you around.